Hey y'all. All right, I am going to make Blue Vervain capsules. And so I thought it would be a good idea to just invite y'all in to the process. You can see how they're made. I can talk about Blue Vervain. I can talk about our capsule machine setup, which people are usually really curious about. So that's what I'm doing today. I have this set up. I want to make these capsules for Tami. She's been wanting her Blue Vervain. She's almost out. And I need to get to it because Blue Vervain is one of the herbs that really supports her in so many ways. And I can talk about the benefits of the Blue Vervain, but I also wanted to show y'all how we make capsules here. So I have the herb. This is Blue Vervain, powdered. Talk about the difference of powdered and cut and sifted. I have our capsules. We have a big capsule bag. And so I just grabbed a bunch. These are vegan capsules. I have a spoon, I have a scoop, I have an empty bowl. And then this is like the capsule machine situation. So this is a press for the capsules. You'll see how I use it in the process. Most capsule machines have a lot of parts. There's lots of different ones that you can buy. You can be super industrial, you can be super we have capsule machines at home that only do 50 capsules or 25 capsules. We decided, and it's super manual, like you have to open each capsule and load the machine. This one is great because we don't have to separate the capsules to load the machine, so you'll see how I do that. Blue Vervain is the herb that I'm working with today, that I'm making into capsules for Tami. This capsule machine makes 100 at a time. That was why we chose it. And all of them have these different plates, lots of equipment, lots of parts with capsule machines. But we like this one because we sell our capsules by the 100. So we wanted to make them in batches of 100. And now there's this little knob that you use and you insert here. So when the capsules are loaded, you can tighten and squeeze them so then you can pull the tops off. So that's how this machine separates the tops and the bottoms for you. Yeah, let me do that. And Blue Vervain, Verbena or Verbena hustata, some of its properties. It's anti-spasmodic, anti-inflammatory. It really helps with people's relaxing the nervous system. It's a nervous system relaxant, slightly cooling. It's bitter. All of our bitter herbs. So I just loaded the capsules, and these are the excess that I can. I have a lot of space here on the camera. I'm just you have this little flap, and so they'll slide back in to the container. And then you have 100 right there. So with them loaded, this part needs to be open so that I can load the capsules inside. And this slides, so you'll see me slide it to the left once it's inside, and the capsules will drop into, I don't know what all these parts are called, into this part. Hold on. Yeah, so just locked in. There's 2 positions so that you can load 50 at a time. So, and it tells you, because you really have to keep track, because otherwise if you have done the same position before and then you slide it and you release all the capsules, they double up, so they just kind of fall to the side. So really pay attention to which position you put it in before. So I'm gonna do the 1 and then I'll do the 2. So I'm gonna slide it. You can't see it, but the capsules fall inside. And then, now you can see it here, I can load the next 50. But Blue Vervain. So really great story about Blue Vervain. And Tami, most of us are taught that we have to take Motrin or Advil or Tylenol or something for menstrual cramps. And so until we know better with plants, now I've got to put it in position 2. Until we know better with plants, that's what we do, right? Into the 2 position. So now we have all 100 capsules loaded into the machine. There's a knob over here that you have to adjust, and you have to make sure that the plates are loose so that the capsules push and fall all the way through. And the reason why they're not squeezing down is because when I put this in, just to keep it in position, I ended up accidentally tightening the plates. So now you know it's in place because this just goes flat. You have to do the flap. When you don't do the flap, all the capsules fall out. So as I tighten the plates, then the bottom part of the capsule will stay in place and the top will come out. So this is how the machine separates. Let's just see if I tightened it enough. So I have some in there, but you see a lot of the bottoms are still in there, so I have to put it back. Let me go in the other direction. But if you're interested, we do have a YouTube video that goes through 11 of the equipment items that we pretty much use every week. And on that video, I talk about where we got this capsule machine from. At the time, it was $700, and it came with no instructions. There was one YouTube video I found that kind of walked you through how to do it, but it had no sound, it had no audio. Yay! So you see it. There's no bottoms, and the tops are all right there. All right, so you put those aside, and you can see that all of the bottoms here, but they're not flush with the plate, so you can't load them yet. So you loosen the plates again so that the capsules get flush with the plates. Boom. And then it feels smooth. And so there's a plate at the bottom that the bottom of the capsules rest on. And then we have, this helps to put it in place. You'll see what it does. And you can load the herb. Then also you can remove excess herb after you squeeze or you press. So I was talking about Blue Vervain replaced Advil for Tami for menstrual cramps. Like completely replaced it. That's what we're taught, right? You just get something over the counter and you destroy your gut lining with NSAIDs that contributes to anemia. You're told to take the Motrin or the Advil or the Tylenol or the whatever. But you're not told necessarily the consequences of doing that long term. And so Blue Vervain is one of the is the plant that completely helped Tami replace Advil for menstrual cramps. And she's been doing that for years. So whether it's in tincture form, which we really like making a percolation, but Blue Vervain, we're making capsules. It's antispasmodic, so it helps with cramps. Any kind of smooth muscle cramping, that's what antispasmodic does. So where you have smooth muscle tissue, you have it in your esophagus, you have it in your stomach, your intestines are smooth muscle, your uterus is smooth muscle. So when we see that antispasmodic, that's usually for cramping and spasming in those types of tissues. So it helps with menstrual cramps.
If you have a chronic health condition that you've been struggling to heal from, tune in to our free herbal medicine masterclass. I'm going to teach you all about how I got out of chronic pain, healed trauma, ditched dependence on big pharma's drugs using herbal medicine and the Calypso healing method. The link is below.
All right, we loaded the powder. It's anti-inflammatory. And anti-inflammatory that's a tough word in herbalism because we don't really want to shut off the inflammatory response, like it's a healthy immune response, but we do want to dial down excess inflammation. And I feel like all plants have some sort of mechanism within them that help us reduce excess inflammation. One of Blue Vervain's is it has flavonoids in it that help to reduce inflammation. And flavonoids are also antioxidant, helping with free radical damage, electron donators. It's a really good mental health herb as well, helping with anxiety, helping with depression, helping lift the melancholy, helping with overthinking and tension that if you're an overthinker, ruminator, worrier, and that tension tends to rest in your shoulders, in your neck, upper body, helps with headaches too. Blue Vervain is a good choice to consider. And it's really versatile. You can grow it yourself, but you can make capsules. Of course, you can make teas out of it. It's just very bitter, which some people love, some people don't. You can make glycerite. Bitters, though, are really beneficial both for our nervous systems and for our digestion. So anytime you see that an herb is bitter, don't avoid it. You should run to it because that's probably the taste within our diets that we are most efficient in. Bitters help, it's that rest and digest state. So they help relax and help us induce a parasympathetic nervous state. So if we're in fight, flight, freeze, shut down, fawn, reaching for bitter herbs is really beneficial in that moment. It'll help you turn into your other nervous system state, which is more beneficial to you. Compressing the powder, it helps to maximize how much is getting into the capsule. So each capsule size and each capsule holds a different amount of herb. But if you don't compress, you leave air, right? You leave air in the herb, and then you can't really, there's a lot of variability when it comes to making capsules and how much you're actually fitting inside. But for the most part, when we compress with these capsules, we press it, we know that the range we're getting around, and depending on how finely powdered it is, we're getting around 600 milligrams. It's a range though, between because you have to weigh them after. So between 5 and 600 milligrams per capsule. But if I just poured it in, that's not going to be uniform. So you really don't know if you really want to dose in as much of a precise way as you can with herbs. You maximize the volume of the space that you're using. And then we know that range, and we know okay, this is around 600 milligrams. That tells me, well, how much should you have a day if you're taking this in therapeutic doses? That tells me how many capsules to put on the label. 60 grams of herb makes 100 capsules for us. So if we do it that way, then I really know for each type of capsule around what your daily dose is. So that's what I do. I didn't measure it here because this is for us. But for our blood sugar baby capsules, which help with insulin sensitivity and diabetes, that's what we do. For our cool capsules, we do the same. And so this tray, it helps to keep it all together, and then you can slide the excess over for your next batch. Now we put the top back on. All right. And it lines up, clicks into place. You press the bottom and the top plates together. That's putting the capsule back together. I move it off of the tray, and now you can pick it up, and the capsules should stay together. Pick it up. Yay. And then you can release the latch. So I have one, but I have the top. I have one right there that didn't come together, but it's sitting right there, and I can put the top on. Release the latch, open the flap. And now let me find that cap, and then here's the loose capsule that didn't make it. And I just put it on. And now we have Andre. So the Blue Vervain helps with Tami's cramps. She's one of those warriors, but we're changing that. She thinks a lot. I'll say that. She thinks a lot. So it helps with that kind of anxiety. And then it helps release that shoulder, neck tension. It's also a galactagogue. So anybody know what that is? I'm gonna keep making this until I'm out. Obviously, it goes a lot faster when you're not multitasking and talking. But anybody know what a galactagogue is? A little herbal quiz. So Blue Vervain is a galactagogue. It helps promote breast milk production when people are nursing. Think about postpartum depression, having that nervous system support, along with the milk support, along with the stress. As much as we love new additions to the family, it's a stressful time. That adjustment is stressful. So Blue Vervain is a really helpful herb for that. It's alterative. Anybody know where my herbalists at? Herbal quiz. Alterative, what does that mean? A lot of our bitter plants are also alterative. That's a unique kind of herbal word. It's a general term for helping to keep the channels of elimination open. So sometimes that could be through the kidneys. Sometimes that could be through digestion, through the colon, keeping things moving. A lot of bitters are alteratives, having that kind of cleansing effect on the body. Blue Vervain is also hypotensive. Hypotensive, we know what that means. What is hypotensive? Anyone? Hypotensive, helping with blood pressure. helping to lower blood pressure. And that's a tricky action with plants because just like with inflammation, which is another example, it's hard to know to what degree. So when people are, and that's where you see, it's actually really confusing. When you see plants that have I'll keep using with hypertension, where you say that, oh, it helps to lower blood pressure. You don't know to which degree. And so since we don't know to which degree, sometimes we will also see an overly cautious note about not taking them in combination with blood pressure lowering medications. But there's so much wiggle room in that. There's so much wiggle room as to how much a plant lowers, just keeping this example, lowers blood pressure. And so I tell people you got to keep track of it. Keep track of it. You don't want someone, obviously, to go into a hypotensive state, where their blood pressure gets too low if they're on medications and also using plants to support that. So you really have to monitor it yourself. But I do sometimes think that the herb-drug interactions are overly don't do this and this, very strict and rigid. And I think there's a lot of nuance and a lot of wiggle room. But that is not to say that there aren't some very, very strong herb-to-drug interactions that we don't need to pay attention to. I'm just saying it's nuanced. So don't go on talking about what Salim said. Well, I heard this herbalist said you can take all herbs with drugs together. No, you can't. Don't do that. And I didn't say that. Just saying, keep studying. That's really what it is. Keep studying, keep paying attention to your body. Pharmaceutical companies only care about plants to the degree that they can replicate and synthesize something synthetic that mimics the activity of a plant compound. So it's not necessarily in their best interest to be you can actually take these plants for your blood pressure. So Blue Vervain, antispasmodic, anti-inflammatory, alterative, bitter, galactagon, astringent. Who knows what astringency is? Anyone? Hi. Astringency means that it has the ability to tighten and tone tissue, helping to reduce fluid loss. So most people probably know astringency with facial toners. Maybe it's rose or witch hazel, trying to tone the tissues of the skin. So the same thing, we can do that in our internal tissues as well. Think about passive fluid movement and what's excessive. So think like leukorrhea, which is excessive vaginal discharge, menorrhagia, which is excessive menstrual flow, even passive nosebleeds. Diarrhea is a really good example of a situation in which you want astringency. So that's what that means. Tightening and toning tissue. As you're getting to know plants, we typically learn this herb is good for this. Elderberry is good for viruses, colds and flus. But if you start learning your actions, what the medical and or specifically herbal vocabulary means, you have a deeper understanding of all of the different applications that a single herb has. Instead of saying Blue Vervain helps with cramps, helps with spasmodic coughs, helps with stomach pain, helps with intestinal pain, menstrual cramps. If you just know what antispasmodic means, then you know all of the ways in which it can be supported in the body. So when you know what astringency means, depending on where it is, if you want to make a tea of Blue Vervain and use it as a toner, you can do that because it has astringency. There's a lot of debate, I won't say controversy, but debate around plants that bind to our estrogen receptors, especially if you have an estrogen dominant condition. Is it helpful or not? And so here's how I like to think of it. All of your cells have, let's pretend, right, that this is a cell in your body. All of your cells have innumerable receptors on them. And the receptors are what different molecules, different chemicals, how they can attach to the cell and then therefore give the cell instructions. So if we have an estrogen dominant condition like fibroids, endometriosis, really heavy periods, maybe prolonged periods, or if it's unopposed by estrogen, our bodies or our exposure, think through food, hormones, That means we have a lot of estrogen in our bodies that's attaching to the cells and giving the cells instructions. So the debate with whether or not plants that have phytoestrogens in them are supportive or not supportive for estrogen dominant conditions is around, is that creating an additional amount? Like, is that adding to the estrogen load in the body? But another way to think about it is that if we're introducing phytoestrogens, they don't bind at the same strength that our biological estrogen does. So if we have a phytoestrogen that's binding to the same receptor that a biological estrogen will bind to, one could argue that that's helpful because now this excess biological estrogen can be metabolized, especially if we're supporting liver function. It can then be metabolized through the liver and secreted. There are a lot of studies that say phytoestrogens really help with estrogen dominant conditions, and then there are some that don't. And I think ultimately it goes back to like, pay attention to your body, see how it feels. It's hard to avoid all phytoestrogens because they're in our food too. They're in beans. But I do think that one really critical piece to supporting hormone function that a lot of people are missing in their protocols, because they're just like, I just want to take hormone balancing herbs, which is really like not specific enough for you to know if it's supportive to you. So instead of doing that as your first line for reproductive hormone issues, I would argue that you should support the liver, because it's the liver's job to metabolize them. And so any hormonal condition, reproductive hormone condition, if the liver is sluggish and overloaded, like the liver does a lot of work. But depending on our diets, depending on what we're exposed to, heavy metals, like it detoxifies and metabolizes so much. So if you have sluggish liver function, that's likely going to ripple effect into having reproductive health concerns too. So I would focus on the liver, as opposed to trying to figure out, well, is maca helpful to me? Because it says it's hormone balancing. Like, we have 50 hormones, over 50 hormones. Hormone balancing is like, which ones and to what degree? Vitex or chaste tree berry is a very different hormonal herb than Blue Vervain, than maca. So we talk about learn your actions over trying to remember an entire list of what an herb can do, because that list is always going to be incomplete. But if you learn your actions and you start making those connections between actions and the constituents and the energetics, then you can really actually see how many ways this single herb can be used in your body and for different reasons, in different blends for different reasons. And then it's also really helpful just if you're new. I don't know who's new to herbalism here, who's been our page for a while, who's a student here, anyone in family pharmacy or herbal medicine for the soul here. It's always really helpful to start with one plant, get to know it, just like you would a friend, because it's going to create so many shifts. And there's one thing about herbal medicine is if you're only reading and consuming information and not getting in that kitchen and practicing making it and taking it, you don't get it. We have two programs. We have family pharmacy, which is 12 weeks, and we have herbal medicine for the soul, which is a lifetime mentorship program. And we have some one-off classes, just focusing on our programs, because that's where you get the most. What are y'all drinking? I'm drinking, my daily blend has changed a little bit. I have a lot in here. I have rose, because herbal medicine for the soul, we were working with rose for the month. I have cleavers, I have poke root. Don't work with that unless you know what you're doing. Poke root, calendula. So if you know what those three do, you know it's have some good lymphatic cleansing going on. And I have a little bit of my adaptogen blend. I have ginger in here and elder in here and a little bit of sea moss. It's kind of a lot. This is a lot. Don't do that. This is the last one I'm going to do so that I can get ready for our Thursday class. The ways in which you can use Blue Vervain. This is our herb that I'm making these capsules out of. And one of its benefits is that it helps with anxiety and depression. It's relaxing to the nervous system. It helps people who those thoughts are spiraling, and it rests in muscle tension. It's really helpful versus people who experience anxiety And that spiral, the like physiological response of that tends to rest in the gut. Like that's that nervous butterflies in your stomach. Like I do that. So chamomile is an option for if your anxiety rests in your gut like that. And then blue vervain, if your anxiety tends to manifest as muscle tension, blue vervain is a good option. Try both. Don't mix them either. You can mix them, but you can mix them after you get to know them individually. Chamomile is so underrated. You couldn't even list all the ways that chamomile is helpful. It is such an underrated plant. So I would start with chamomile, try that for a week, and then go to blue vervain, and then try that for a week and see how you feel. And not one time, like, oh, I did it on Monday, and you forgot for the rest of the week. Make a cup of tea. Let that be your daily tea for a week. So you can do 1 cup, you can do 1 or 2. The starting ratio is about 1 teaspoon to 8 ounces of water to make a water-based infusion. And you do want to start there, even if you're like, oh, I know chamomile, or I know blue vervain. I can take more. Another action that has a lot of nuance to it is emetic, E-M-E-T-I-C. Emetic herbs can induce vomiting, but that's really dose dependent. Depends on the herb, because like lobelia can do that quite quickly with even a little bit, because it's a really powerful smooth muscle relaxer, and you have smooth muscle tissue that connects the lower third of your esophagus with your stomach. So a little bit of lobelia and you're gonna start feeling nauseous. So that's a low dose herb. But something like chamomile, I found that that's really dose dependent. And I've seen it where people are like, oh, I can't handle chamomile. And instead of doing a teaspoon, they do 2 tablespoons. So it doesn't take an hour to make 300 capsules, but talking slows the process down. If you want to know more about this capsule machine, just type equipment, because I'll see it in the chat. And then I can send you the link to our YouTube video that goes into more detail about this particular capsule machine. Where are y'all in your herbal journey? Have you started? Are you curious? Are you deep in it? What plants are you working with? You learned a lot about blue vervain today. Blue vervain, verbena, you can grow it. Anti-inflammatory, analgesic or anodyne, that's pain relieving. Digestive, alterative, bitter, carminative, that's helping with gas. Those are, or choleretic, that's helping with bile production. Helps to lower fevers. That's another kind of nuance. I feel like all herbal actions are nuanced. Unless it's really energetically, and I mean herbal energetics, not a different kind of energy. Unless it's really cooling and like a refrigerant, like hibiscus, I found that in order to get that fever reducing benefit, you actually need to consume it hot. And that can be hard, particularly with a 2-year-old who has a fever. They're not gonna drink enough hot tea in that moment to reduce the fever. An adult might though. Galactagogue, we learned what that meant too. What else? We know why bitters are helpful. Parasympathetic nervous state and nervous system relaxant, and helping with digestive secretions and enzymes. Bitters help your entire digestive process. From salivation, you're releasing enzymes there, stomach acid, peristalsis, which is the muscular movement in your intestines that helps keep things moving along. We really need bitters. We really, really need bitters. Your lungs even have bitter receptors. It helps with like gut motility too. So if it's not moving efficiently, you really need bitters. So don't shy away when an herb is bitter or when it might not taste great. Figure out how to get it in there. Capsules are a great way. If you're really averse to taste, if you're like, if it's nasty, I'm not gonna have it, well then try capsules. And if you're in Atlanta, Decatur, come visit me in person. We are a mile away from the DeKalb Farmers Market. I will the remedy on Google. If you've been here and you love it, leave us a Google review. Come and visit us in person. So again, when you know your actions, you know what it does. It's much easier to learn the actions than it is to memorize all these indications. And one really good example, this last story, of why it's important to know your actions. I remember someone reached out a while ago They wanted a blend for RSV, the respiratory virus. They wanted a blend for that for their kid. But you know, folks nosy. So before I replied, because I saw, in their handle, like, oh, they have their own tea company. And on their website, they had a blend. They had an immunity tea that had all of the herbs that they needed for RSV. So it's like, if you know the actions, if you know antiviral, then you know that it's going to be supportive for many different kinds of viruses that are in the same class. And that's like cold, influenza, RSV, COVID. Antiviral is going to help that versus the other viruses, like maybe envelope viruses like herpes, shingles. And if it helps with herpes, then you know that it's also going to help with that class of viruses. It was an interesting moment because it helps us to realize like how much deeper we really need to study and understand how versatile these plants are. Because she had the blend that she needed. You don't need a separate blend for the flu or for the cold. It's the same plants. All right, 300 capsules. It doesn't take that long. It doesn't take an hour typically, but chatting makes it go longer. All right, thanks for tuning in, y'all. Bye.